All right. The March meeting of the Board of Commissioners for the South Whidbey Parks and Rec District is called to order at 18:01.
Doug, are you recording it?
I will be right now.
All right, I'll need to do that again then.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. We're all good.
All right, so the March meeting of the Board of Commissioners for the South Whidbey Parks and Rec District is called to order at 18:01.
Okay, we did not receive any emails or letters for public comment, and as far as I know, no one has logged in for public comment or asked for the link, so we should be good to go on public comment.
All right, then we'll move forward with the approval of the minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from the February meeting? Are there any changes or questions?
Nothing heard. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, Krista.
Hi, Josh. Hi, Matt.
Aye, Jennifer. All those not in favor? All right, the motion carries and the February minutes are approved. We will move into the treasurer's report. Sorry for the error on the agenda, Matt, my mistake. So we will do the treasurer's report first and then the vouchers.
It's all good. Can you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so again, this is the overall slide summary for the year with the magenta line being our progress. We're up is favorable. So you can see we're slightly up cumulative. The light blue line is slightly above the magenta line as of end of February to the tune of 21,000 total favorable. And we'll go to the next slide to see the detail. So of that 21K, 6,000 of it is from revenue. You can see that's the cumulative revenue favorability. So we're ahead on the levy by just under 8,000. That offsets just a little bit unfavorable in other areas. And then the remainder, if you go to the next slide, comes from on the expense side. 15,000 favorable in expense control. You can see maintenance is pink, admin is the tan, khaki. So rough split you can see there for the 15K total. If you look at the next slide, it's got the fund balances and we're on plan. You can see the total now is up at the very top. Any questions about the summary? If not, we'll go on to the vouchers. Okay, I'm going to pull up the latest vouchers and run through any updates.
Yes, I will do so.
Okay.
Okay, so any changes? We had Humphrey Sign Co. We bought a field sign. We had we returned some irrigation supplies, got a refund. We had some money for the setup of the flail mower that was connecting the hydraulic lines and such to it. And some property assessments and more irrigation supplies. We're getting into that time. Some crushed rock for pathways and such throughout the park, as well as the one over at Trustland. And that was it. Any questions for me on the vouchers?
I don't have a question on the vouchers. I did have a question on the budget versus actual report.
Sure.
So looking at under administration, line item 1202, is that state unemployment insurance? What is that line item?
I'm sorry, which line? Which line?
1202?
Yes, state unemployment insurance.
All right, and so why the increase in that?
Okay.
The increase, it was only, the bill was 125 and the budgeted is 50. Oh, you're saying actually, okay. Probably because of timing.
Oh, so just filing.
Yeah, the budgeted probably should have been a little bit higher for that time period. But it's not, I mean, our unemployment insurance did go up, but not by a huge amount.
Okay.
And that's roughly, that's an annual recalculation, right, Peggy?
Yeah.
And then telephone was up just because we're back in the office more?
No, actually, we had to get Tom a new phone. So there was like a one-time charge of about $800 on there.
Okay. All right, thank you, Peggy.
Sure.
Right, if there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the voucher list.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the voucher listing for the M&O fund and the total amount of $72,431.15.
I'll second that motion.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye, Josh.
Eric, aye.
Krista, aye.
Matt, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, the motion carries and the voucher list is approved.
Just a reminder to all commissioners, please do the usual email response to the email Peggy sent out today on approving the vouchers so we have that record. The total amount obviously is $72,431.15. Okay.
We'll move on to the staff report.
All right. Minimize that. Staff report. Okay, so we are starting to get a little more freedom with programming. It's starting to open up a little bit. We're going to be looking at that as we continue to go. Still lots of uncertainty because we don't know details yet on what phase 3 includes. Last week on Thursday, the governor announced that there was going to be a phase 3 and that more details on specific things would come this week. We haven't seen that yet, so we don't know what phase 3 guidance looks like yet. We're still waiting permits on the triathlon. We're promoting it on a limited basis, like as a save the date. We're going to be foregoing pickleball, indoor pickleball for the time being, as we still have not been able to get access to the gyms with the school district. That is something we might need to visit Eric and Jennifer with the interlocal committee. My understanding is that, and our understanding is that other groups have been allowed to use the gyms on a limited basis, but not us. And we have not been able to get anyone to answer us on that one. So maybe a conversation we have to have with the interlocal committee. We don't know. We just don't know what's going on. Working on getting baseball, soccer fields in shape for their respective seasons, and those reservations are coming in. Baseball has started up. Soccer looks to start sometime in April with more of a kind of a what is the way? It's more of an academy type thing where they're going to have a lot more training as opposed to games. So they're looking at that with the club. And we're looking at how we do that. The excavator was plumbed for the new flail attachment. We've been using that a bit. We've done both the trail in Community Park, Tom and his crew did and completed and laid gravel down. There's still some finish work to be done and some fill-in work on the old trail. But that is in place and in use, as well as the switchback trail I walked today in Trustline Trail. So that's completed as well. Here are some pictures. This is in Community Park. We're going to put some plantings in to kind of block the ends of the old trail and then fill in some of the other stuff, but it looks nice and clean. It's all good and set up. This right here is the end of the trail on the north end of the part that we replaced. We are going to kind of leave this kind of turnaround in here for our use. You know, for turning around and moving things around and that kind of thing on the trails. So those two are completed. I have some pictures of the trail that Tom gave me that are not included in the report, but that I will pull up in a second. Matt and the foundation did some incredible work on the survey, reviewing and revising it and getting it out to the community, getting it into the paper for more publicity. Results are coming in. My understanding from the email I saw was about 1,000 have been done already, which was pretty much our target number. So we're right on track to get exactly the kind of response we needed. You know, more, and then I have sent out. I worked on getting quotes for the small water system management plan in addition to the Davido quote. More on that in the regular agenda. That was a lot of phone calls. Communicating with Island County Health on the bathroom and shower requirements to the campground, as that has come up again in discussions of the county code. Been working on developing and expanding the trail stewards program. I've been talking with WTA, the county, and state parks on the island in looking at developing kind of like a partnership program where we kind of have a pool of volunteers that we send all of our projects out to, that we work with on. Everybody's been open to it. It's just kind of working out the details. So we're working on that. We're working on getting a couple of projects put together. I've also reached out to the school district, and I'm going to get some information from schools for particularly for the Waterman property, because WTA's got a couple of programs where they will work with groups to develop like trails forever or for a lifetime. I can't remember exactly what they call it, but it's a program where they want more youth involvement in constructing and maintaining trails. The elementary school and primary school kids have done some work on the trails out behind the elementary school in past and have put up signage. Want to kind of capitalize on that and work with them to continue that program and develop it for the future with the Waterman property that's right there. So that's really good. Signs are there that this could work really well. I've been fielding a lot of questions from pickup groups on the state restrictions and a good amount of time communicating regarding county's interpretation and our interpretation of those restrictions. Spent a lot of time on the phone with Keith Higman, just kind of clarifying and making sure we were doing what we should be doing and communicating that to our users. As we get more information on what phase 3 involves, I'm hoping we can open up more and allow more of these activities, you know, with the appropriate safeguards in place. That's pretty much it for the staff report. Let me pull up really quick. Let me move this. And let me minimize that, and let me pull up really quick the trail pictures. So these are the trail. These are shots of the trail in as it was being constructed. It is now graveled in. This is the switchback trail, so you can kind of see the final version here that avoids the steeper section in Trustland Trails. It is complete. It is in. I walked it today. It looks really good. So there you go. So any questions on the staff report?
Is Shelley Ackerman's group still on board as being part of our trail stewards?
She is on my list, yes, and they are. She is still. She's still in that group, so yes, she will be part of that. She will likely be a leader in that. What I'm working on with WTA is developing this to be more of a island-wide group that we can really tap into, rather than having our group of 25 to 50 volunteers. We'd be able to tap into an island group of 150 to 300 volunteers. It seems to me to make a lot more sense. Plus, with involving
So-
involving WTA, we get training opportunities for those people, opportunities for them to learn. WTA gets maybe some people on the island that are better trained and then can become assistant, crew leads in the future, or potentially even a crew lead in the future. So that's kind of what I'm targeting.
Hey, Matt, help me with this. I might stumble, but I know that another resource we can tap into is the Navy. I know that the sailors are required to do some work within the communities to help with their advancement. So that could be another group. I've worked with them on Habitat for Humanity and have been just really super impressed with the caliber of people that are coming out and helping.
Sure.
Yeah, just second that. I put in some volunteer hours, putting in that new signage on the trails behind the school. And I was working with pretty much all Navy people.
Yep.
Yeah, they do. They're called COMREL events, community relations events, short for. We like acronyms in the Navy. So yeah, and I think the idea of a bigger pool, Doug, I had passed on a couple of the members of the foundation board are part of this volunteer cadre as well. Mm-hmm. And there's some people connected to them. There's a group of kayakers that are led by John Lovey, who's Brenda Lovey on the foundation board's husband.
Sure.
And he volunteered basically his entire group, and they've got 50, 60 people.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm targeting with all of this. Is I know with the county, they've got the backcountry horsemen that do Putney Woods and those kinds of things, and kind of trying to bring all these, the friends of South Whidbey State Park, friends of Fort, EB State Park. So there's all these groups. I'm trying to get them all under one kind of umbrella where we can tap into all of them at once. And yeah, definitely get me any contact information for people that I should add to my list, and I will add them in, and they will be part of the communication that goes out.
Fabulous. All right. Any other questions on the staff report?
Yeah, I'll just a comment. I'll say I'm in the park every morning on that loop that's flooded, and there's run into 10, 15 people, 20 people over the course of a week, and got comments about the flooding, answered questions about the flooding, talked to people about the flooding, and told them about the plan on the trail. And then saw it the first day, the gravel had gone down, and just think it was just an outstanding job of, one, addressing the problem, but two, doing it in a way that was demonstrated good stewardship of the park. The route that was picked obviously didn't take down any significant trees and just matches the natural landscape and the kind of flow of that slope. So I haven't seen the Trust Line Trails one, but I'll go out there tomorrow or the next day and take a look at that. But I expect it's similar. So outstanding job all the way around by the staff.
Yeah, definitely kudos to Tom and his crew. Tom and his crew did a great job getting that stuff together. We used a new flail mower, and it's not the complete solution, because if there's a log down or a tree across, we've got to bring the other, we got to put the bucket on and bring it back out and get out there. But it worked great. They were able to do it in a quick and timely fashion and do it with very minimal impact, which I thought was amazing. So kudos to Tom and his crew. Great job by them.
Yeah, I absolutely concur. Job well done.
Thank you.
All right. If no more comments or questions.
One other point. Doug had said 1,000 surveys. I just looked at the number. It's 1,200 surveys. So I think it's approaching in fact, it may be our most well responded survey since I've been on the board. It's a long time. Mm-hmm. I think we got 700 for the comprehensive plan survey, and then we got the last needs assessment that we did back in 2005. I think we got 1,000. So this is great. No, it's fantastic. Yeah, thanks for everybody who's shared that. I know some of you guys have shared that on through your own accounts, social media, and other places, and I think all of that has helped. It's been fantastic. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and if we can say, we can come up a list of good things to come out of the pandemic, it's that we're discovering our own backyard, and the community involvement is a huge plus.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to unfinished business.
Comprehensive plan. So I talked a little bit about this in talking with the county about the water spigots and the kind of what we're gonna do with those and in the park. They brought up bathrooms again. Now we told them from the day one that bathrooms and showers were phase 2 of our approach. I've talked with them about this. I'm waiting on, I'm told that one of the county officials for the health department is Clea Berenberg, and she's sending me a letter regarding what they're saying, and I have yet to hear from them. I have not received the letter yet. So I'm waiting on that letter regarding, and it's probably regarding these drainage rock dry wells underneath the hose bibs, which makes sense to me. Garbage cans by them, and then as well, it could address bathroom facilities and shower facilities. Now, we do have bathroom facilities in the park. We do not have shower facilities in the park, and what they are saying is the code says that campgrounds should have are required to have showers. Well, we've said from day one that showers are phase 2 in our plan, so I'm waiting to hear what they're going to tell us to do, because this is new. Again, another thing they've brought up again after a while. So we'll see what that comes back with, but I'm waiting on that letter. I sent out another shout out to them today and said, hey, still waiting on that. No, I don't know what's going on. Can you please get back to me as soon as possible? Have not yet heard. So that's that. Matt, I'm going to jump over aquatics right now and just talk a little bit more about the trails stuff.
Sure.
I did have a good meeting with the entire group on Wednesday, March 10th. Everything went really well. What we are now doing with the kind of combined effort is we're going back and looking at potential projects that are shovel ready to go, that we can do as kind of a soft opening pilot project for this kind of thing. And then we're going to send that out to everybody and have them sign up through WTA to do a project. Now, that's probably going to be a state parks project because they have projects ready to go on their agenda. But this will mobilize the group and get that rolling, and then we can then look at that, and if that works, and it works fairly well, which I think it should, we can then pump it up, you know, give it more life, breathe more life into it, and come back with a project at the Waterman property, and look at, hey, let's create this trail, or let's flag this and go through and get it done. So it is in its infancy, but I want to take that and run with it. So if you, like Matt, if you have these names that you haven't yet forwarded to me, please forward them to me. And if you have forwarded them to me, just make sure I've got them. And if I don't, get them to me again. Anybody that's got names that you want to add to my list of trail stewards, please get them to me. I will add them to the list. I have a list started. It's in an Excel spreadsheet so that I can just kind of add it in and go from there. So, and any commissioners, you want me to add your own names to the list, I'm happy to do that as well. For the aquatic facility stuff, it's been going really pretty well. We are in a stage now where the survey, I believe our end date for the survey is April 1st. So we have another couple, like week and a half, I think, about with that. And then that will be ending 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks. And that will be ending. And then what we're doing now is we're scheduling stakeholder meetings with stakeholder groups. I know Matt is trying to reach out to the port. I'm reaching out to the hospital. We've had other groups we've reached out to as well that we're already scheduling meetings on. So that's where we kind of are with that. Matt, you want to add anything into that? You know, you might have some more detail that I don't have.
Yeah, just maybe an update on, we talked last meeting about things like funding, a couple updates there. So we were talking about our maintenance and operations levy renewal, which is going to be on the ballot in February, next February. And remember, the election day or election months are February, April, August, and November. I think I'm guessing that the schools will be on the ballot in April of next year. So if we talk about if along the way we get into a public bond measure, I think it seems to me the reasonable election date is lining up like August of 2022, that third election of the 2022 year. just because it's away from the school and it's away from our normal M&O levy renewal, and it's not the general election of November. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. That's an August timeframe. The lining up of other funding sources is proceeding. The foundation board attended a grant writing workshop today, hosted or held by the Department of Commerce. There is a grant that they can provide called the Community Development Block Grant. It's federal money that feeds through the state for local quality of life improvements. In small communities, less than 50,000 population, and so their grant cycle is coming up quickly. The applications are due in June, and the maximum that they can give you is 900,000. So the foundation's intention is to apply for that full amount. The application needs to be hosted by a local governmental entity. In this case, it's Island County. So Island County will have to be the sponsor of the application, and then we'll be the applicant, we the district. So that's in the hopper for consideration for June. And then, like I said, 900,000 is coming from that. And then the RCO grants, it looks like in March for this project will be the LWCF, which is a maximum of 500,000.
I think it's 5.
Yeah, 500. Yep. So 500,000 for development. So, like I said, 900,000 potential from the CDBG Department of Commerce program, and then 500,000 from the RCO LWCF will be applied for. And then the program was just restored by the federal government through the state, called what's it called? Community project funding. And there's an application window that's ending much sooner than the others, March 31st in this case, but it's essentially applying for federal government money for projects that improve, communities, local projects that improve quality of life in communities, funded by this federal program called Community Project Funding. So our District 2 rep, Rick Larson, is soliciting applications and will select 10 projects from all of his applicants to take back to Congress in an attempt to get funding. So there's going to be an application forwarded or presented in that forum to try to become one of those 10 sponsored projects, and an attempt to meet with him before that selection happens. And then to follow up on we talked about with the state capital budget, that initiative is moving forward. The foundation board, Danielle Bishop and Rich Bacigalupi met with Craig Gilday to give him an overview of the project. He's on the state capital budget committee. It happens to be our representatives. And then there'll be a follow-on meeting with the board chairman, who's Representative Farringer, District 28 in Port Angeles, brokered by the Port Angeles pool director, who's got a relationship with Representative Farringer. So that's moving forward. The meeting with Gilday was yesterday, I think, or the day before. Then the other meeting that happened, requesting support, was to one of the county commissioners, Melanie Bacon, and trying to get on a county commissioner meeting agenda to present the project and to get them hopefully to write a resolution in support of it, similar to what Langley City Council is doing. So that, and that's what I'm trying to do that with the port, as Doug pointed out. I just can't get them to answer me. But anyway, I'm hoping to go to their next meeting and present it to also get a written letter of support or resolution from them expressing support for the project. So that's the update.
Matt, I will reach out to the port tomorrow and try and get a hold of the director and see if he can get back to you.
Yeah, I emailed him a couple of days ago and no response. I couldn't find any good numbers that anybody would pick up. So I'm just in the holding pattern. If you can break the code, I'd love it.
I'm just making a note right now.
Okay. Yeah, any questions anybody has? Shoot.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right. That's it for unfinished business then. So let's move on to new business, please.
So new business, we have 3 things in new business. First up, the Deer Lake WDFW public access launch site. So we've been talking about at the last meeting that there are some renovations planned for that site. So I did finally get, and I'm going to minimize my stuff here so that everybody can see this, from WDFW. They sent through kind of their most recent plans. So you can kind of see here, this is kind of the existing, and then this is what we're looking at doing. So coming down the road, we're gonna do some asphalting here. They're going to put out a launching float, okay, and a new ramp is going in, so that will be nicer. And then they've got the toilet. They're going to do an ADA pathway, it looks like, gravel path. And the other stuff is all existing, but they're reconfiguring this. So most of the parking, you know, they're going to have some ADA parking, I believe, and some other things like that. But this is just the update that we had talked about. This is all grant work through the state grant process. They do not have to provide match. So this is why we work with them on these, so that because they can get their whole thing done and put it in and get it completed. So those are the plans. And then what I wanted to kind of give a heads up on is from my understanding, we're looking at the construction of this to begin this October. So this year they will be doing the work on starting work on this project. Their contractor is in-house, I believe, and they come in and do it all themselves. So we should have, hopefully by next year, 2022 fishing season, a whole new launch, a whole new launching platform, a whole new launch float. Everything should be all new in there, and it should look really great and should be much easier to use over there. Any questions on that?
Has there ever been a boat launching float there?
A float beside the launch? No. There is a dock out there that's kind of a swim dock. But there's never been a launch dock there.
So that's a real step up for this property. That's great.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think we need to, like, they've got good plans. I think this would be a great thing for us to communicate, because WDFW is not going to communicate it. They don't, you know. I think for us to, using all available means, website, Facebook page, newsletter, what's the thing for the schools, just to get out in front of it so people know it's coming. And then when it happens, then, pictures and, article in the paper. I think that we should put maybe a press release this summer. Hey, new project, happening.
Yeah.
I think a lot of goodwill.
Right. I think that it's a little early now to be pushing it, but I think I was kind of targeting this summer to kind of give people a heads up. Yeah. Hey, there will be construction work going on at Deer Lake, starting in October on this project when we get a little closer to it. So yeah, definitely getting that word out there, I think is good. And it shows that, we're collaborating with the state agencies and getting stuff done on Whidbey, which is exactly what we should be doing.
Yeah, and like signage, like maybe we put up the banner that you guys did for the campground property, something like that, your government in partnership,
Mhm.
kind of thing.
Yeah, we can look at doing something like that.
Yeah, like I said, there's just too much goodwill to be gained from
Oh yeah.
this kind of, at no cost to us, very little.
Okay.
If there is going to be some sort of banner, that should go up in the summer when usage is highest.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, maybe that we schedule, Carrie, we find a way to schedule some programs, pop-up kind of programs, once it's, right when it's completed, hopefully we're in a place where we can do those, full attendance programs at that point or close. And that would be a great way to kick it off and get some press around it.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that? Okay. So next is the Trustline Trails vehicle traffic. So Tom reached out to Island County. Tom and I talked about can we get a way to count vehicles and such that are coming in and out of Trustline Trails. We know we're seeing an increase, but can we quantify that? This report here is vehicle counts. So on this, it counts total trips. So when a car goes across one way, that's 1. When it goes across the other way, that's 2. All right. So 134, 115, 164, 200. We had these traffic sensors out there for 8 total days. So now their totals are kind of off because their totals encompassed like 5 more days that were not had 0 totals on them. So I think they just had their program had a limitation that didn't allow it. So don't look at the average daily traffic. What I'm going to do is pull up, but this was done with a vehicle sensor out at Trustland for 8 days. And so what that came out to, so I went back and I took all the data. Report indicated that a total of 533 cars, that's taking the number of trips and cutting them in half, visited Trustland Trails in the 8-day period, averaging 62.625 cars per day. Factoring in an average of 1.5 people per car, some are going to be more, a lot are going to be 1, or maybe 1 with their dog. That gives us an average of 99.9375 people visiting that park each day just by car, just by vehicle. Number does not include in any usage by park neighbors or other walk-in visitors. So I think that's a significant increase in usage at Trustland. I think that we are seeing a significant increase there. When I was over there today, I counted 7 cars in addition to mine in the parking lot when I was there to go walk the new switchback trail. So it is a significant uptick. This was also done in mid-February. So now that the weather is getting nicer, it's getting a little warmer, we're probably seeing more traffic than this. So this is really good kind of feedback for us, and it's good baseline for us to kind of take. And if we can get them to bring it out for another 7 or 8 day period, we can do another average down the road and see if it's increasing, if it's kind of staying about the same, and go through that. But I just wanted to share that information with you. I think it shows that the improvements that we've made to Trustland are being truly appreciated by the community. Any questions or thoughts on that?
Have we ever done that before? Like, are we just referencing it kind of anecdotally as an increase? I can't remember.
We're referencing it anecdotally as an increase. It is not. We have not done that before, to my knowledge. Not since I've been here. No, there was really no real reason to do it because we hadn't seen a lot of traffic there. So this is kind of a way to kind of give us now a baseline as to, okay, now we're seeing some traffic there. What is that traffic?
Sure.
So it's just good information to have. I wanted to share that with the board.
That's great. That's great because that was a bad week too. I mean, weather-wise.
It was not a nice week. It was nasty that weekend, and we still had a good number of people in that park walking.
Yeah, I would love to see that redone in September. Maybe to filter out a little bit of possible tourist use. I mean, I don't know to what extent tourists do use those trails, but to kind of, again, filter that out. Whereas September, we'd be back to more primary locals again, but still really nice weather. I'd love to know data.
So the issue we run into with this is the county puts that in for us when they're not using it. So when they're using it is generally when it's nicer out, when there's construction going on. So if we can get it, I would love to do it again. I would love to have it out there multiple times during the year to kind of see, okay, do we get a peak of traffic in the summer? What's it like in September? What's it, and just kind of get different things. But yeah, we're going to be fairly limited as to when we can get that, but we will make an effort to get it back out there again. I'd like to see different numbers at different times of the year if we can get that information.
What a great, PR tool in our technological age. I was thinking beyond that, meaning, here we are talking about renovation at Deer Lake and the number of people you see there. We can quantitatively say, oh, there's a lot of people that go there in the summer. I think we might be, pleasantly surprised the increase or the uptake in numbers. And I guess what I'm saying is that device, whatever they're using, I'm assuming it's something that they, like you see on the roads with a tube that the tire goes over, right? And they're keeping track that way. Yeah. It would seem to me that for parks in general, trying to pass, whatever measure at a particular time, it's just ammunition. It's real data. And it's such a simple thing to do, whether it's our park or we're talking about Deer Lake or, any of those areas. It just may be something, I'm throwing it out there, that in the future, as technology gets better and the price comes down on equipment like that, rather than relying on Island County to suffice, that we look into something that we could go around and measure, that have a barometer, a baseline, like you said.
Right.
I think that would be a worthy endeavor.
Oh, I agree. And I think it's something that we'll look into in maybe just getting one unit that we can move around would be huge. So, and then we could put it where we wanted to see, we could say, okay, we're going to put it for 4 weeks in September. We're going to see how many people come into Trustland or for a week in September. And then we're going to move it to Deer Lake, and we're going to move it to Goss Lake, and we're going to move it to Community Park, and we're going to move it to, sports complex. And we're going to see what the numbers are, what we truly are getting for vehicles. Now, it doesn't really tell us people because it depends on where you're going. Like sports complex, you could have, 4 to 6 people in a vehicle going to a sporting event. You don't know. You have no clue. It tells you cars, and it's really, it quantifies cars. It doesn't quantify people, but it gives you an idea, and it's really good information to have, especially when we're going after grants and stuff, to be able to say, hey, we want to put in this because we're seeing this much traffic here, and and we don't have this. If we have this, there's going to be more people using it. So, yeah, I think it's good information to have, and it was on my kind of back burner to go, what does that equipment actually cost, and what kind of software do we need to run it? How much of a costing is that to get? Because that would be huge to have on a regular basis, where we can just go and set it up, run it for 7 days, pull it out, check the numbers, and go, okay, here's where we're at.
Right.
So.
I mean, the Deer Lake one would be really interesting to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, that place gets hammered in the summer. It'd be really interesting to take some data there on a week in August or that kind of thing, because it would just to me that would be really interesting data. And over time compare it to Goss Lake, compare it to Lone Lake access.
Yeah, I think with Deer Lake, you're looking at a lot of walk-in traffic at Deer over drive-in, but it would be interesting to see how many cars are going in there. But it would
it's got the well, I would say Lone Lake's got the best parking, but probably the worst water conditions. Deer Lake's got pretty decent parking and probably the best water conditions. So I would bet Deer Lake has the highest number. But like I said, and to Eric's point, it'd be great to just kind of collect that data.
Yeah.
See what usage is where.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Anything else on that? Okay. Final thing I had on the agenda, small water system management plan. So I did contact Davido. This is something we need to do to expand, not just for the campground, but also if we end up putting the swimming pool facility in the park, we will need a small water system management plan. I reached out to 5 additional engineering firms to get additional quotes for the work. 2 responded, and eventually, and both indicated they could not do the work in a timely fashion, or more significantly, would not be able to do the work as well or as efficiently as Davido, because Davido has already done our water capacity analysis. They would not even give me a number. So I'm almost looking at this now as sole source, because Davido's already got all the info. They're going to be able to do it cheaper than anybody else is. So I did reach out to Allison at the RCO and confirmed that this as a management plan is not eligible for reimbursement from the local parks grant that we have. So while we can use the money we received reimbursing us for the property purchase to do this, we would not get 50% back from our expenditure on this from the RCO. Does everybody understand what I'm saying there?
Not really.
Okay, so when we got the initial campground grant, we bought the property. That's what we got the money from them for. So we have a pool of money sitting there for the campground. Okay, now with the grant, what we can do on certain items is we can, so if when we go to construction, we can say, okay, we bid out construction and it's $50,000. It's not going to be, but let's say it is, just for ease of number. We can then submit that bill to the RCO and say, hey, we just paid $50,000 for this construction. They will then process that, send us a check for $25,000, half of that, and reimburse us that. Okay, this is not eligible for that reimbursement because it is not directly construction or processing and getting that campground up and running. It is a small water system management plan. So we can still use the money that they've given us back. We just can't send it to them and say, hey, reimburse us 50% of this.
And is the small water system management plan to addressing a county requirement to follow up on that capacity analysis?
It addresses a state requirement. We need to have, in order to expand our water system, to add the campground in, even to add water to the campground, it addresses a state requirement and therefore also addresses a county health requirement. We have to have the water capacity analysis that says, yes, it'll fit, which we already have done. We have to have the small water system management plan to expand our current water system. We cannot expand it. We can't add anything to it right now without doing this.
Got it. And so beyond that, there will need to be design work for the system and then the actual construction of the system components, right? Yeah. So this is the plan, then there's the design, then there's the construction.
Well, this is the plan for our entire water system. So this is how we manage our water system.
And if you look at that capacity analysis, it talked about, it outlined the system and talked about, how we would deliver additional capacity. And so, it makes sense to me.
Okay. So the total estimated maximum fees from Davido is $7,914. That's an estimate, but it is an estimated maximum. So it's probably more like a, should not exceed number. Staff recommends going ahead with this. I don't think we can get any other company, number one, to bid on this, or number two, to match this price for this.
And what's their timeline? Do we know?
I do not know. But again, they've got all the documentation from the water capacity analysis. So a lot of the stuff is just cut and paste. So it won't take them very long to do once they start it.
Sure. And do they write?
Get the construction costs and all of that.
I'm sorry? I had two people talking at once.
So when do we get the construction costs? Or is that what this is? Is this just planning or is this all the way through?
This is just, this is just a plan to manage our water system, okay? Because in order to add to it, we have to have a management plan. We have to have a designated water manager, like a water system manager, which is likely going to be a contracted thing, because to have somebody on our staff become that, it's almost a full-time job in and of itself. So we would likely be contracting with like King Water Systems or something like that to manage this system once it's in place. But we have to have this plan set in order to do that and in order to expand our water system. This is just a plan for managing our existing water system and any additions we add on to it. It is not construction. It is not. If it was construction, we could get reimbursed for it. It's not, so we can't.
Yeah, but David O in the past has, as either as part of these kinds of things or as adjunct, what I think we need to do to get to your point, Jennifer, is an RFP to David O on the plans, on the expansion plans, so that they can cost out the plans themselves and and do a construction estimate, because they did that for the septic. As part of the septic study, they came up with a estimated cost for construction and for the planning and engineering work. So I think we could ask them for the same thing for the water.
So Matt, if you guys look here on the screen, you'll see that there are, it's financial planning, it's component inventory and assessment, planned improvements is listed as an item. So that's something they will be addressing in this plan. We're planning these improvements. They know what we're planning. They've been a part of that whole process. So they understand what we're trying to do and what we need to do to get the water over there. So there should be in and of this, maybe a basic framework that they can then take and go, this is how we're actually going to do it.
Yeah, I would like I say, I would expect it's going to cost $200,000 kind of number, just a budgetary number.
Any other questions on this?
Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with David O for the small water system management plan for a not to exceed of $79.14.
I will second that motion.
All right, so I think I'm supposed to repeat the motion back, right, Doug?
Technically, yes.
Technically, yes. All right, so we have a motion to proceed with David O for the completion of the small water system management plan not to exceed $7,914. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, aye.
Krista, aye.
Josh, aye.
Matt, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, the motion carries and the plan is approved.
Okay, so that's all I had on the agenda. I would like to add, we did have Matt, Josh and I had a brief meeting regarding getting ready for grants next year for fields, for sports field, artificial turf field. So we're starting that up again. The other one that I'm going to look at is with Josh and Jennifer, and that's the amphitheater committee, because we have plans that we could take. So I'm going to look at those two to kind of get those rolling again for next year. Jennifer did bring up when I was talking to her earlier today that we might want to do something along the same lines with the pickleball courts. I thought maybe that we could incorporate, either do a separate kind of grant proposal for it, or incorporate that with the artificial turf field kind of grant application process and kind of lump it all together, since it's right up in that area. Well, so just wanted to get your thoughts on that, and then we could do a whole separate pickleball court committee to try and do its own grant process. It either way has its positives, has its negatives. So it's really up to you guys what you think we should do.
Do we have any ballpark idea what that was? It 3 courts that we're talking about, or what was it? 4?
We were talking initially 2, but I think it was up to 3, and we were looking at having the ability to expand it to 4. I have talked to a gentleman's name is Barry Hayworth, I believe, with the pickleball group, and I have set a meeting with him for a week or 2 from now to kind of talk about everything. His thought is that 2 they would overwhelm within a week or 2. There'd not be enough space. So he was saying 4 would be much more ideal.
Sure.
That all goes part and parcel
They'd
with
love,
can we afford.
they'd love 10 too.
Yeah, 10 would be great too. So it's just a question of what can we afford and how can we get it done. So
I want to chime in on that because I am pro pickleball on this because of its amazing growth potential. And everyone, as I speak, my daughter is playing in the championship pickleball tournament down in Arizona. This is just an insanely popular sport, multi-generational, and the concept of having more versus less courts, to me, makes complete sense. And I say that for 2 reasons. One, the cost effectiveness of it. Just if you're going to do it right. I wish I had the article that was in the PI about the Bainbridge courts where this whole thing originated. But the community there created I believe it's 4, it might even be 6 courts, but they host tournaments all the time. And people come there and pay homage to the sport of pickleball as well as to just venture to travel. So in terms of bringing in revenue and being able to do something with it, 2 courts, as Barry would probably attest, is not going to do much. But once you get to that 4-court position, now it opens up a new venue. And I say that for young people, older people, schools, clubs, whatever it may be. So, it's a slab of pavement. It's not a tennis court. It doesn't take a whole lot of equipment. And for the number of people right now that are engaged in that, I'm just very favorable in producing 4 courts versus less than that. So, that's my 2 cents on it.
And do we think are we talking 25,000 kind of per court ballpark number, Doug, you think?
This is Carrie. I actually spoke with a guy who had recently installed, I think it was 3 courts, I believe it was, over at one of the resort developments, like I can't remember what it's called. Sun something. Anyways.
Suncadia.
It might have something like that. Anyways, and I believe he said it was 75,000 for that. Of course, we're talking. Yeah, we're talking prevailing wages, which is significantly different.
Well, yeah.
That's gonna.
And you go to Suncadia, you're east of the mountains. Construction's a little cheaper over there. There's differences in cost. But if we were to say approximately 25,000 a court, we'd probably be in the ballpark. It's gonna vary. We're gonna have to look at what we're doing. But there are grant applications that I've seen in that local parks grant that are like $30,000. I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, it's a candidate for 2, the same 2 that Josh and I were talking about with the turf field, youth athletic facilities, and that caps at 350,000, right, Doug?
Yeah.
So athletic facility, 50% match. So we could submit an application, write a grant application around that, asking for up to 350K. So, but they require, like I said, it requires half match. So say the total is 100,000. So we could apply for 50,000 from youth athletic facilities and then apply for 50,000 from WWRP local parks. and grant for grant match, and they're small enough dollars that I think we'd have a decent chance of getting those 2 grants in, the summer, next summer.
Yeah, it'd be a little later than next summer, and it would have to be, so there has to be a local match regardless. So our local match minimum, I think, is 10%. So
yeah, 10,000.
we would have to chip in 10 grand, but we would then get that 10 grand leveraged with the 2 grants by 45 grand each. So we'd get 90 grand out of 10 grand, which I think is a huge upsell. So that I think it's a candidate. What do you got all thinking on the idea of, do we want to set up a separate committee to target this one and do it separately? It kind of makes sense to do it separately in my head right now, just thinking about it, kind of looking at it going, then we're separating that out and saying, this is just, it's pickleball, we can target, it's multi-generational, all the other stuff, the sports fields are kind of separate, and I'd like to kind of keep it that way. So maybe we set up a whole new pickleball committee to kind of look into this, because that would involve...
that sports field complex is such a big entity that I look at that completely different than Barry and people that are, gathering signatures and the community that wants that pickleball set up. I'm in favor of keeping those separate.
Okay. Anybody else?
Are there any benefits?
Sorry, go ahead, Krista.
Are there any benefits for them to stay together?
Well, to me, the cost estimate for the turf field is somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million ballpark. So neither one of the grant programs that apply to it, WWRP Local Parks is $500,000, and Youth Athletic Facilities is $350,000. So even if we got both of those, it still might only be 60% of the total cost. So to me, just from a financial standpoint, it makes more sense to separate them, because I think we have a decent chance of being successful with both of them. Mm-hmm. And otherwise we would lose, we wouldn't gain any incremental money by including them together.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're not competing with ourselves. You know what I mean? Like letting that up.
Yeah, we would be competing with ourselves, but that's okay. And what it does by splitting them, what it does. So you asked about what's the benefit of keeping them together. It means we write one application for each grant instead of 2. It's not that big of a deal. We use the same template, so it won't be a big deal to separate it out and write it out differently. They are different populations. They're targeting different populations. They're definitely something that we can push differently and approach differently. So the more I think about it, the more it makes sense to keep them separate. And we would be competing with ourselves, but that would mean too that if we might get one and not the other, but at least we wouldn't get none, right? So
And then back at home here, by setting up a separate committee, aren't we showing the pickleball community that we're serious about it? We're listening to them, we hear them, and we're working on it.
Definitely.
So just one question, or maybe it's a comment, but I believe in the budget under capital improvements for the capital budget for 21 is maybe 30,000. Tom probably knows, 30,000 towards pickleball courts. I'm just wondering if you want to do anything with that this year, or I just wanted to remind you that I believe that's there in the budget for 21.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's something that we can explore with this committee, and we can start to look at, hey, what can we do with it? Because if we're talking about that only gets us one court, it might be better to leverage that as our match and use that money that way.
To me,
for some of the groundwork.
Yeah, so to me, there's 2 things you could do with it. Just like you said, you could do site prep. But once you do site prep, it's spent and it can't count as match anymore.
Yeah.
So you really, what you if the, and, you know, and this is just, we're just talking for the first time, so who knows where it ends up going. But if we ended up in the RCO process in March with these 2 grant requests, having that match, carrying that amount forward and having that as actual match on your match worksheet in the grant would be worth, you know, would be worth a significant amount in their calculation.
Yeah.
Towards our potential success in those grant applications. So, you know, you would be able to make up the site prep, you know, cost of the site prep from the grants. So I would say if it went that way, my recommendation would be to carry it forward to serve as a match for those grants.
Well, and in carrying it forward would be in a new cycle, so then we could add more to it as well, right?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Part of the budget.
Yeah, if we needed to. I mean, that puts a question in there. Okay, so looking at that, then, do we have any commissioners that would like to volunteer? I would need a maximum of 2 on that pickleball committee.
I will.
Eric? Krista?
Yeah, so Josh and I
will play some pickleball. I'll get you on board here.
So Josh and I are in the side-by-side committee, right? Mm-hmm. So Josh and I are on the field thing. So
like, this is, you know, I don't. I'm happy to help, but I don't know anything about grants or this process or any of it.
That's my job.
Okay.
That's what I get to do. I get to have the fun with the grants.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got Eric and Krista on that committee, and then they'll be working a little bit in tandem, I'm sure, with Matt and Josh, and then probably Josh and Jennifer on the amphitheater committee if that moves forward as well. So good. That's all I have. I'm done. I'm out. Thank you.
Hey, just a quick comment on the pickleball area. From a timing standpoint, if we're going to get this group together and solidify that's going to be the spot for the pickleball courts, I suggest we do that sooner rather than later, and we start looking at getting the site work, at least the leveling portion of that process, going September, October, if at all possible, because early fall, we're going to be able to get the equipment back there to do the work when it's dry versus trying to do it through the wintertime. So just from a standpoint of getting the major dirt work done and letting it be ready, you know, shovel ready, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah,
when we walked out there with you, isn't that area, there's no trees, correct? And it's fairly level, what we were looking at?
Yeah, there's no tree. Very bumpy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would just say, I mean, the timing is right from a seasonality standpoint, but all that effort that we would do, just, again, we may very well want to do it. It may make sense, but all that effort, time, and materials, equipment time would all be potential match for the grants if we waited until, you know, May to do it, for example. So like I said, we may want to do it in September because it makes sense to do it.
Yeah, so remember that the grant process takes time as well. So it's not like we apply for the grant in March and then we get it in April. We apply for the grant in March, we go through the process, the final decisions are made, and we don't get those decisions until October. So in general, we're probably looking at October of 2022 as the earliest, and even then, we usually don't get the money till the following year. So it might be May of 2023 that we construct these things. But as Matt says, but they are. You're seeing the results of the grant cycle in August, right? Isn't that you get
like
you get the ranked list in August. So at end of August, beginning of September, we have that ranked list of here's where everything ranks. Here's if the funding is here, here's where it gets to. So we kind of have an idea as to what's going on at that point. Yes. Yeah.
So I think that to the point about match. So Krista, for your edification, we when we got the last grants that, these couple of grants that we did, the normal process is they say, okay, we selected you for $50,000 and now we need to see your match. And you've got 6 months to come up with that. Or they take your money and put it back in the pool and go to the next person on the list who didn't get funded. And they'll extend that depending on what, like they did with us when we had the grant for grant match and there was the delay in the program. And, so they're it's not inflexible, but that if they said in August, okay, here's your 50, you need to come up with 50, and we didn't get the other grant, for example, to match it, we would need to come up with $50,000 to match from our own funds, either cash or labor, time, materials, that kind of stuff, that all contributes to match. So like I said, that for that purpose, and it may not be the overriding decision criteria, but for that purpose, we would want to have that stuff queued up and say, okay, hey, we're going to launch into the site prep immediately, and we're going to spend $15,000 worth of labor, time, expense, materials doing that. And now we only got 35,000 we got to match, and then we get that from the budget. So just think about these things. We got time, right? But just think about how those things all line up.
So if you look at this year's,
I would say the other thing, and sorry, this kind of stream of consciousness here. One of the elements of the grant package that we submit is we verify that the project is in our comprehensive plan, and pickleball is not in our comprehensive plan. So it happened since, all this kind of spiked up since 2017 when we were building that plan. So we got to figure out how to deal with that. Our grant applications will need to address that. Like we'll need to write special things that say, hey, this is not in the comp plan because it's exhibited this rapid rise in popularity and blah, blah, blah. And that's why we weren't thinking of it in 2017 as a need, because they look at the grants and say, how well is it going to address one of the needs that you told us about when you publish your comp plan to the state? And they won't find it, right? So like I said, we're going to have to think about that too, and how we account for that. And Doug, in your conversations with Allison at the RCO, we're going to have to figure out how do we deal with something that's not in our comp plan.
Right.
Okay. Anything further? Tom?
Yeah, I was just going to follow up. In this year's capital budget, I believe we put in around $8,000 for the leveling work for that entire back area. I got a rough estimate from Morley and Sons Construction.
That's it. Doug, anything else?
And then the $30,000 was for the construction.
Doug, you're muted.
No, we can hear
I'm
Tom.
not talking. Tom's talking.
And I lost your audio.
So anyway, yeah, in the capital this year, it was a total of $40,000. That was going to be 2 courts. 8,000 of that was site prep, and 30,000 roughly was materials and install of 2 courts. So if we're going for 4, I suggest we go ahead and hold off on that. But there is money this year to regrade that entire area. So just keep that in the back of your mind.
Thank you, Tom. All right. Is there anything further?
Yes, I've got something positive that I think you'll like. I asked Doug if I could have a few minutes at the end. I had a conversation with Susan Milan, and those of you who don't know Susan Milan's a long time, about 30-year veteran teacher in the school district, science teacher, and she has done some incredible stuff early on with the trail systems when she was in the elementary school. It is her passion, and she has written numerous grants, but one of the grants that they have now is called the Noah B grant. And what she would like to do, and I think this is really cool, is she would like to have the students create a interpretive guide that could be used through Park and Rec as visitors come to specifically almost where the campground is, the trail that wraps around our existing campground site as a start. But it would be an interpretive guide, digital. So you would have a QR code and be able to scan it. And then all of a sudden you'd have identification, and this would be a student project. The cool thing about this is she's done this before. She brought it to my attention and would happily, if it's something the board is enthusiastic about, come and talk to you more about the details of what that would look like. But the premise being the kids would have an early start on the steward program. We were talking about that earlier. So Doug, this is going to be added to your list. I would love to see, I know for years we had middle school students really on that, helping everything from trail actually clearing to naming, the whole ball of wax. And when I brought up the fact that the Waterman trails, we were talking about that, she's even more excited. She's very close with Shelley Ackerman, so she knows about that. She's going to make the connection through Schools Foundation. What she's looking for now is just kind of the seeds of beginning that steward program through her own classroom with 7th and 8th graders, creating this interpretive guide. And what that would mean for us in terms of Park and Rec at the entrance, whether it be, maybe it's a newer entrance. I know discussions talking about how that entrance is going to look to the campground and to that area, but it's very close to the schools. And what it would be is something similar to a post with the interpretive, signage on it with the QR thing that people scan, and then you walk back in there, and it would everything from history to species to, the name of a particular type of plant, the Native American culture. I mean, the list goes on and on. But for students, it's a really cool project that, would make us also at the same time, I think, feed right into where you're at in terms of the creation of that campground area with people coming and visiting. It's like I said, the proximity to the school is wonderful because you're going to have not just science classes, but other classes using that as well. So I said I would bring that up. I think it's a pretty exciting concept, and looking just to see if you're in favor of that or not.
So I told Eric to bring it up here, and then what I suggested was that we add an agenda item next month to our meeting to have her come in and present this to us.
Yeah, no, I like the idea. I think it's cool.
I think it's great, and if you have the opportunity, if you haven't been there yet, the new Price Sculpture Forest up in Coopville, it's kind of similar. Like they have, it's interpreted trail and QR codes all the way through. So that would be a place where you can go and kind of see that idea in action.
Good enough.
And where is that?
Parker Road.
Yeah, near Long Point.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. So let's get her on the agenda. Thank you, Eric.
I think the reason he had me bring it is just simply because they're not there yet, but they want to know that work is going to, have a pathway to mature. There's absolutely no reason why we wouldn't want something like that. But on the same token, before they start down that road of putting it all together, they kind of want the approval and know that Park and Rec would be in favor of something like that.
Why wouldn't we want a pathway to approval for our trails?
That's what I said.
You're very funny, Eric.
Pretty cool.
I got one alibi. I had a member of the soccer club, I think a board member, maybe a coach and a board member, maybe just a coach, reached out to me earlier this week, asking for a meeting with the board. And I told him, well, probably more practical if you meet with the field or whatever we call ourselves, the field committee, me and Josh, So I just sent him a note saying, hey, tell us when you're in the park, and I'd coordinate with Josh and we'd find a time that we could go. We could go talk to him. It's evidently there's topics of like coal usage and placement and movement and those kinds of things. And I told him, we'll listen. And I know he's been working with the staff, Tom and Doug to a degree. So I figured we'd hear him out, and then we'll report back to the board. If we're able to have that meeting before the next meeting, we'll report out on how it went. So I'll reach out to you, Josh, once he tells me when he's in the park.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good, Matt.